Hello and welcome back to the Down the Forest Path Knitting Podcast. My name is Nicola. I am the host and the moderator of this podcast. And if you've been following along, then you know that last week we were in Northern Ireland, but Northern Ireland was only part of my vacation. And today I am going to take you along to the coziest yarn store I've ever found in Scotland. So if you want to, grab a cup of something nice and warm and cozy and follow me to Fort William. Fort William is a really small and rather touristy town, but it's so incredibly cozy. I just love it. It's one of my favorite places in the whole wide world. It's basically this tiny town that's located right at a loch. So you have the view over the water and then you have mountains in the background. It's really, really close to Ben Nevis, which is the UK's highest mountain. And lots of people climb the mountain and start their day in Fort William, have a nice hearty breakfast, and then head up Ben Nevis and then come back down in the evening. So it also has a lot of outdoorsy shops, bike shops, everything you could imagine. There's a gondola range nearby, and from there's a super popular mountain biking path going down the mountain. So it's just really popular with anyone who loves hiking and outdoorsy stuff like me. So of course, that part of it is already super nice, but then it also has the most amazing bookstore. I love it. It's called the Highland Bookstore, I think. And they have such a cute selection of books. They have basically everything you could want, especially if you're a little bit into fantasy books or nature related books. They just have such a huge selection of it. They have stationery. They have old fabric maps, which are amazing. I actually bought some as a present when I was there the last time, not this time. And they also have a big selection of secondhand books if that's your jam. So if you are in Fort William, definitely go to that bookstore. They also have some local prints and art and really nice postcards that they're selling. It's really worth visiting. If you then walk along the high street a tiny bit further, then you actually arrive at the Caledonian Wool store, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today, because I have been there last year when I was in Scotland and it was really nice. Back then the little shop dog that they have, Peanut, was just a tiny little potato sized thing, and now Peanut has grown into a slightly larger potato sized full-sized dog, and she's the cutest little thing. But the shop overall is just amazing. It's this really nice shop that has a lot of Scottish yarns, hand-spun yarns. They have felt kits. The felt kits are really pretty. I think the owner assembles them herself and sells them there. They're so nice. They feature scenes from around Fort William and the Scottish landscape. So if you want a perfect souvenir to take back after you leave, then that's definitely something to go for. They also sell these beautiful shawl brooches that are made from clay with wildflowers that the owner's mother makes herself. And she's retiring this year, so if you do want a brooch, then now is your time to snatch one up before they're gone. The owner herself is also super friendly. I feel like sometimes yarn store owners can be a little bit aloof if you come in, but that's not the case there at all. She's so welcoming, and it's always such good fun to go in there. I went twice in the 3 days we were in Fort William, and there's always such a good atmosphere in the store, people chatting to each other, finding yarn for their projects. I think there's a lot of people looking for souvenir yarns to bring back to make something that reminds them of their trip. And so the selection is really good if you're looking for nice Scottish yarns. I also got this bag. Isn't that super cute? And on the back it says yarn, an investment in present and future happiness, wool or other fibers spun together for knitting, crochet, weaving, felting, sewing or squishing. Collective nouns: flock, fluffwad, mine, squish, stash, tangle. And as you can see, this bag is relatively full. Actually, it's already gotten a little bit emptier, but it was stuffed when I went out of there. So you're probably kind of curious about what I actually brought back in yarns from Scotland. And let me start with this beautiful mohair yarn that I bought 2 balls of. It's Scottish mohair and it's from Kames farm, and I was really curious because I thought this label was super cozy, so I wanted to look them up and kind of like find out a little bit more what they're all about. You can see Scottish mohair, and they're a farm run by organic principles, and they're basically a family-run farm. They have Angora goats, and that's where this mohair comes from. And they mostly have rescued animals, if I understood it correctly. So they have rescued dogs, goats, cats, and everything you could think of. And they make this yarn out of the wool that these Angora goats produce. I bought 2 balls of it. This is 4 ply, so it's roughly 260 meters per 100 gram, and it's 70% mohair and 30% Shetland wool in the colorway Murret. I just saw it and I was like, oh god, I've kind of fallen in love a little bit, because look at how shiny this yarn is. It's so pretty and it's so soft. It feels cool to the touch almost, but I know it's going to keep me warm. And I now have 520 meters of it, so this will make a nicely sized shawl. I think I might make an Out of Darkness for myself from this, because yeah, I usually am mostly yarn shopping for making stuff for other people, or at least quite often, but when I'm on vacation somewhere, I'm mostly looking at stuff for myself because it's my souvenir yarns. That's an expression that I kind of got from Ravelry, and I feel like it describes it perfectly, because like whenever I travel somewhere, I try to bring back one skein of yarn at least, so I can make something that then reminds me of that vacation. And last year I did from Scotland as well. That was a yarn I got at a yarn store that coincidentally the owner of the Caledonian Wool recommended to me. And let me just try to remember what it was called. I remembered, well, I had to look in my shelf and then I remembered, but it was from the Hand Spinner Having Fun, which is a super good yarn store on the Isle of Skye. If you are there, you should go. You're going to regret it if you don't. They have the most beautiful selection of hand spun yarns that are also not super expensive that I've ever seen in my life. And I bought back this really beautiful yarn that has some silk content, and it is kind of like this kind of golden but with green bits color, and I made it into a scarf. I think I have some videos of it from last year. Let me see if I have. I might overlay this a little bit so you can have a look. And that scarf now just really reminds me of that vacation and going to Scotland. Here is another yarn I brought back from there that I haven't made anything out of yet, but look at that. It's just so pretty. This one was called Fairground, and I can kind of see that it has just these beautiful fairground colors. But yeah, back to this year's trip. I unfortunately didn't make it to the Hand Spinner Having Fun this year because it was just too far out, but that's not a reason for regret when the Caledonian Wool is right on my doorstep there. So yeah, this is going to make a beautiful, beautiful shawl for myself. I just already love it so much. Like, it's going to be so soft and warm, but not overheating, because as you know, I overheat quite easily. And I was just really fascinated with this little idea of this family farm that rescues animals producing these beautiful yarns. They have a website, so you can also order the yarn online. And on the website, they also sell blankets and clothes and candles that they or their friends make themselves. So if you're interested in any of that, I'm going to link it below so you can have a look. As usual, this video is not sponsored. If it ever would be sponsored, you would know, like, upfront very clearly. I just completely fell in love with this and with the wool store and with basically all of Fort William. Like, what are you doing if you're not going there on vacation? If you can, then go. It's the most amazing place that I've ever been to. Like, this print I brought back from there is from an artist that painted Glencoe, and that is just basically down the road from Fort William, and it looks like that in real life. It's just really, it literally does. So if you're into outdoorsy stuff, then that's just the place I would recommend to you. I also brought back this yarn from the World of Wool. So this is also sold in the Caledonian Wool, and this is a Shetland and blue-faced Leicester Aran yarn. It's 100% British wool, and this is 100 gram for each ball, and that is how many meters? Will you tell me? Mm. 175 meters per 100 gram approximately. And this is the color Brari. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's this kind of petrol blue, but it has quite a lot of green in it as well. So it's a bit like kingfisher blue, but a bit more green. And I brought back 4 balls of this because I want to make a cropped sweater from it. And in fact, I have even started already, so you're going to see this in a minute when I go over to the projects that are on the needles at the moment, because there are a few, so that's going to be an exciting update. But yeah, I just really like this because it's quite woolly, but it's not scratchy, and I am super excited to be knitting with it. I've been trying on the top of my jumper that I'm making with it a few times already, and I think it's not going to be too scratchy. I have grand plans for this, and this was also really cheap to get. I think it was like £7 or something like that for 100 gram. So I'm going to be able to make a cropped sweater, not a full length, but a cropped sweater for under £30, which is a good price if you're considering that this is 100% wool. So yeah, that was my kind of big purchase, and it was also what was filling out the yarn bag so much. Also from the Caledonian Wool store, I have one more acquisition, which is the Journal of Scottish Yarn. So this is like, I think a quarterly magazine that you can get, that is full of knitting patterns and information. It's really nice. I have to say, not all of the patterns in there are usually my jam, but they don't have to be, because as long as like 1 or 2 are, it's still worth getting, because this magazine contains so much info about Scottish yarns and knitting and weaving traditions. Like, this issue has the super long essay, basically documentary about tartan making. Let me just find a page that has really nice pictures. Here you go. And it just has basically everything I like to read about, like stories of small manufacturers, family-run businesses. It gives you ideas on like makers you might want to support, which I always really like. It gives you ideas on historical knitting. It is kind of full of info and interesting facts. I have to really try not to get distracted while I'm talking about it to you, because I just start reading. It's so interesting, and it smells really nice. It smells like freshly printed books, because of course it would. The paper is also super high quality, and there are a few patterns in there that I really liked, so I might be making them. So they're like, what's kind of scaring me off is that it's bottom up for some of the sweaters that I liked, and I've never knit a bottom up sweater ever in my life, so that would be something new. But like this one, for example, I found so nice. It's so pretty. And then there was, where is it? It was so gorgeous. Please bear with me if this goes on for too long. I'm going to cut it out, but if I haven't, then you know I'm going to find it in a second. So there's no need to worry. Here, the wheat field jumper. Look at this, isn't that so autumnal? Has these like strands of wheat that is running up the jumper. It's so nice. I think this is also bottom up, so that's why I was like hesitating a tiny bit. Let me just check. Yes, it starts at the hem. So I guess I'm going to have to get over that, and you're going to have to morally support me through making my first bottom-up jumper in the end, because this I just can't resist. It's so nice. Yeah, so the Journal of Scottish Yarns, if you're looking for any publication to get, then it might be a good idea. Also has a bit more colorful patterns. It's just not so my style, so I didn't gravitate towards it, but I'm realizing that some of you might, so I'm going to show a few more things. It has this really cute beanie. I don't know how many patterns are in here. I think it's usually around 20 or something like that, so you're getting quite a few different options on stuff. It also has crochet patterns usually. Then we have this top, which some of you might also really like. I think I might like it as well, and in a bit of a different color scheme, but it sits really nicely, so that might be an idea for the next spring, because it's gonna come round quicker than we think, right? It's always like that, isn't it? And then there's this top, which might be interesting for some of you. I think I would like it too. I just don't like the arms that much. Here you go, the gorse top. I think it wouldn't suit me that well with the arms, but if I can find a way to modify them slightly, then I might actually try that too. So yeah, the Journal of Scottish Yarns was my last purchase from the Caledonian Wool store. I put it here, or here, so you can keep looking at the beautiful jumper. But the Caledonian Wool was not the only place I bought stuff from. So let's go on a little bit of a further excursion, because we did spend a day in Edinburgh. And before we came up, we actually also spent a day in the south of Scotland, at the Mull of Galloway, like lighthouse area and surroundings. So I have a few more little purchases, and this is wool and stationery before we go over to the works in progress. If you're not interested in stationery stuff at all, then please feel free to skip. I'm going to include timestamps below, but I know some of you are really into stationery, so I just wanted to give you a quick idea as well. Okay, so maybe let's start with books and then go over to the one more thing of wool I have, and then go to the stationery. So there's a little nice mix. So let's maybe start with the Highland bookstore in Fort William, because you know I did not leave that bookshop without books. It's just not happening. So they gave, I actually bought so many books, they gave me this bag for free, because there was just no way that I was going to carry it. A few of the books I've already finished, packed away, stuff like that. I'm not gonna get them back out right now, but a few I can show you. So first of all, I got this book to just read while we were there. This is by T. Kingfisher, Thornhedge, and I like T. Kingfisher. She is a writer who writes quite humorous fantasy novels that are really like dark sometimes, but quite interesting and nice to follow. And this is a kind of dark take on Sleeping Beauty. And I read through this in a day. I just really liked it. It was cute in a way, but like creepy cute. And it was the perfect book for early autumn. And it's a novella, so it's not super thick. So that's why I breezed through this, and it was just done in an instant. And now I need to buy more of T. Kingfisher's books. I had a few of them before, I think, and I'm really craving that cozy autumn mood, so I should get a few more. Then I got this book, which has beautiful art in it. It's called The Secret of the Kelpie. I really like reading children's books, even though I have been an adult for a while, but I think there's just something about the illustrations and sometimes about like reading simple stories that really draws me in. And this book had it all. It had beautiful art, the story was really moving, and it also was steeped in local Scottish folk tales, so that was the perfect choice for me there. And I also read it while we were still in Scotland. So the last book I wanted to show you, or the second to last book I wanted to show you, is this. This is the new book by Amy Jeffs, Saints. And I really do like Amy Jeffs' way of storytelling. I've read Wild before by her, which featured stories from, like, it's basically, she looks at archaeological sites and then she writes a short story about the site, about like what could have happened there and things like that. And these are so beautiful and so poetic that I just instantly fell in love with her way of storytelling. And usually her books also have these beautiful wood carving lionel prints. I don't know how she makes them, I have to look it up, but they have this beautiful art in them as well, so I can't wait to be reading this. I tried to get my hands on this in Germany because I knew it was coming out and I couldn't. The shipping times took forever, so I'm really glad when I saw it. I actually went into the bookstore and I said to Matt, can you keep out an eye for a book called Saints? And then I just kind of turned my head and it was like right there, it was the last one. And I got it, and I'm really excited about being able to read this now instead of in like 5 weeks or however long my standard book seller Thalia told me it would take to ship this to me. So that's exciting. And the last book, which I've also already finished, is Wuthering Heights, because I felt like it really fit with this kind of like moorland atmosphere that we had on our hikes a little bit, and I'd never read it, so I thought this is a good time, let's just get started on this, because they also had this beautiful edition in the UK. This is the Penguin Classics, the cloth bounds, so it has this beautiful fabric covering, and I have already finished it and I loved this book. I loved this book so much. Then I went on Goodreads and I saw how many negative reviews it has. Then I went on the negative reviews and read them, and a lot of them seemed to be from people who expected it to be like a really romantic love story, and this is really not. If you're looking for that, then this is not the book you're looking for. But if you're looking for basically a psychological study on the saying hurt people, then this is that in essence, and I just really adored it. All right, so that was my book haul, or at least part of my book haul. I also got postcards made by the same artist who did the print that is in the background of this video, because I really fell in love with his art style, and his illustrations feature a lot of like Scottish motifs, but also from his trips around the world. And he is called Fleck, if I remember correctly. Yes, Fleck Illustration. So if you want to, you can check him out, because he also has a website. So in a little whiplash back to wool, and when I was in Edinburgh, I wanted to bring back one skein of souvenir yarn from there as well, and I found this cute yarn store that was called Kathy's Yarn, I think. If not, I'm going to put the name below. And it was like down a little staircase, and then there was this yarn store was just stuffed full of Scottish yarns and yarns from everywhere. I think there was also some other Brigo in there, but I might be wrong. And there were these really nice ladies who were busy helping out another customer finding yarn for her mother, who was going to knit something, because they were going to go back to the US, I think, and they wanted to bring back yarn for her. And it was so kind and informative. They took a long time to help her out to find the right things, and it was just really nice, and I felt very welcome there as well. And in the end, I went with this skein of yarn from Ripples Crafts, and this is called Autumn Ascent Tweed. This is 100 gram and it's 400 meters, so it is fingering weight yarn, and it's 100% blue-faced Leicester. And this is going to be enough for a little Sure. And I keep saying I don't need to buy more shawl yarns, and then I keep buying more shawl yarns, and I don't know where all of these shawls are going to come from or where they're all going to go, but I'm sure it's going to work itself out in time. But at the end of it, it's just like I really kind of struggle with investing enough for getting a sweater's quantity of yarn every single time. So in the end, I often end up with shawl yarns, and then I just have to make them into something, I guess. And I will. And I have a shawl drawer that I'm allowed to fill with shawls, that I've given myself permission to completely fill with shawls, and they'll all be mine. And then as soon as that is full, I have to take one out and make space, and I'll offer that one to my friends and family and see if anyone wants it. And that's going to be the principle of it, because I don't really like hoarding things to an excessive degree. I do have that drawer. It fits about 10 shawls, I think, 10, 15, and then that's enough. That's enough. So as soon as that is overflowing, I will do some inventory and then see what I keep and what I give away. And I'll take you along to that, of course. So what was also really funny is I got this Ripples yarn skein, and I didn't know because I hadn't actually read yet, but the maker, Ripples Yarns, was actually featured in the episode, in the Journal of Scottish Yarns I got, in the issue of Journal of Scottish Yarns I got. And if you're interested, the article in there is also super nice and shows more of her yarns and colorways and how she makes things, and explains how she ended up in Scotland because she's originally from South Africa. And yeah, it was just really nice to read. So one more recommendation for the Journal of Scottish Yarn, and there it goes back. And then I'm going to just hold up a little bit of stationery and tell you where I got it. So this is from a little shop in Edinburgh called Black Moon Botanica, and it's this kind of medieval notepad thing that I just really like because I really like medieval art. Then I have these two cute postcards from a bookstore in Wigtown, and it's from this little, I think it's like an esoteric bookstore. I don't remember. I think it's called Buyer Books. If it isn't, I'll write it down, but I think it's called Buyer Books. And they made these postcards, and I think they were £1 each, so that's really, really cheap. And I really like them because this is a murmuration of starlings. And then here we also have like birds flying, but they're shaped like a woman. So that was just really nice small thing to bring back for me. And I also, from Edinburgh, brought back some birthday cards. This is one of them, and they all have a literary theme, and they're kind of shaped like books. And since I have a lot of friends who also love to read, this seemed like a good shout to just bring back a little stash. So that's what I did. All right, so this was most of my stuff, but I should briefly show you this because this is also really good. I brought back some coffee from the Artisan Roast in Edinburgh, and this is their Johnsoon blend. And friends who lived in Edinburgh for a long time brought it back for Matthew and me before, and now we actually were around there, so I just grabbed a bunch of it. It smells so good, and I can really recommend it. If you're ever in Edinburgh, then you should just go there and bring back some coffee because the coffee is amazing. So now we're kind of done with acquisitions. I'm really not used to having such a long acquisition segment in my podcast because usually, you know me, I don't buy a ton of stuff. So this is really unusual for me. And I'm getting a little bit flustered, but let's go over to the works in progress because there's 3 things I want to talk to you about. First of all, let's talk about the elephant of the whips. And that is my sweater that I said I was making from that beautiful World of Wool yarn. I have it here, and it is growing beautifully. Here we go. As you can see, I've already gotten to the point where I can split off the sleeves, and I'm now knitting on the body. So it's just stocking it in the round, and it will be for a while. And this thing here has been really, really good. So I've seen a lot of videos recently on YouTube where people were kind of talking about notions you don't need and things you shouldn't buy and things that were a little bit of a waste. And I can say that for me, I've actually used most of the notions I got for knitting, but I've started to feel a bit bad because I felt like this row counter was maybe a tiny bit of a waste because I haven't been using it for shawls because it's quite heavy. And it was a splurge when I was in the UK, like 2 times ago, I think. But I was like just feeling a bit down about it because I just wasn't using it in the slightest. And then along came this project where I needed to count the raglan increases I'd made. And it was actually absolutely perfect. I just pinned it to the collar because I kept losing track before I used it. Kept pinning it to the collar and just kept increasing here with the row counter, and it kept me on track beautifully. And I can say this is the best fitting sweater yoke I've ever made, and it's a free pattern, which is absolutely incredible. So the pattern is called the Step by Step Sweater by Florence Miller, and you can find it on Ravelry. As I said, it's free, and it's literally, it is the best free pattern I have ever seen. If you are a beginner knitter wanting to make your first sweater, then this really is the pattern you should be looking at. It's so clear. It tells you what you need to do. It kind of holds your hand a bit, and in the spots where it doesn't, it tells you where you can find the resources to get past a certain step of the pattern. I am usually quite hesitant with recommending patterns before I finish them, but just based on the yoke and reading through the rest of it, I can say, like, this is so clear, you will not have difficulties following it. And it's just really kind of kindly written. I don't know really how to pinpoint it, but it's just a really nice pattern. It makes you feel really welcome somehow. And it's also quite size inclusive. I think the bust size goes from 90 centimeters to 150 centimeters, and the author of the pattern has put in the notes for the pattern that if you need a different size, you can contact her and she will grade it for you, which is also just really, really kind. And she also said that she's going to expand the pattern by further sizes. So if you're looking to make an Aran weight jumper and you have not made one before, or even if you have, I've made lots of jumpers and this was still just the perfect pattern to follow, then look at the step-by-step sweater. You can see this is going quite nicely, so I hope I'll be able to show it to you in its finished version soon. And it will have a little twist to it that I'm not going to talk about yet, but I will update you and take you along once I've done with this what I wanted to do with this once it's finished. So you'll see it again in hopefully not the too distant future. The next work in progress I have for you is the Vibes scarf. This is also a free pattern on Ravelry, but you need to subscribe to an email subscription list to get it. It's going to make basically this like long scarflet, and I'm knitting it from Knitting for Olive mohair yarn and Knitting for Olive merino, and it's probably going to go to a friend, but she doesn't know anything about this yet, so let's see. If I fall in love with it too much, I might keep it for myself. It's basically like one of these little scarflets that got really into fashion when Petite Knit made a similar pattern like a year and a half ago, was it now? Just gonna quickly try and finish this round while my stitch markers jangle to show it to you better when it's a little bit spread out. So this was a ferry and flight cast on for me. It's basically the simplest thing to make, and you can just knit on it when you're waiting around, and I knew there would be quite a bit of waiting around, as there always is when traveling, and I don't like sitting still, and I don't like not using my hands to make stuff when I'm waiting. I just get kind of bored. So this was something that I worked on while sitting on a boat, sitting on a plane, sitting in a car, sitting waiting for like going back from a hike, sitting in a restaurant, sitting wherever. I just was making stuff with this, sitting on a call, sitting, like, yeah, you get the idea. It's just keep knitting on it whenever I was not very busy. And here we go. So now you can see this is not super far along yet, but it's also not a huge project overall, so I won't be knitting on this forever. And we'll just basically be like wrap around the neck, tie a little bow in the front or a little knot, and then just go your merry way, be protected from the wind. It's garter stitch, so it's going to keep someone very warm. It's kind of nice and squishy. I hope the mohair is not too scratchy if I do send it to her, but I find it really soft, so I don't think so. And I really like this color as well. So yeah, those are the two kind of works in progress I am really working on at the moment. And then there's one more that I'm starting this week. So let me quickly get that down. This is my yarn for the Enchantress Halloween Mystery Knit Along by Boo Knits. I think I said before that I was going to make this. And this is yarn from Echt Michel. It's 100% alpaca, and this should be enough because this is 625 meters, and I think the pattern needs 600 to 650. So I'm going to go a little bit down on the needles to make sure that I can make this with this amount of yarn, but it should be okay. And the first clue was released today, so I think this evening, if I have time, I'm just going to sit down, wind this beautiful yarn, decide whether I want to knit from light to dark or from dark to light, and maybe even already cast on and pick some beads for it. Yeah, so that's that. I do not, let me put it aside. I do not have a finished object today. I think that's just going to be the case quite often if I keep putting out videos more often. So if it's like once a week, I won't have a finished object every week, especially not if I'm making sweaters, because that's just not sustainable for me. But I hope next week I can show you something that's finished. I don't know what that will be. But yeah, we'll keep in touch. I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, then don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, because I'm always happy to see you. And I will leave you with some Scotland impressions and say bye bye, see you soon.